Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming here. I will start sharing my screen and then we get started. Can you guys all see my screen? Yeah, awesome. Any questions from our first session or anything you want to talk about? Any experiences you want to share before we start?
It was really cool to get an overview and that was really nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Again, same thing today. I think we have the same people, so I don't need to emphasize on them, but again, same thing today. We're going to have some respectful, open discussions today as well. Participate in activities at your own discretion. You can choose to stay out of them if you want to. And what happens here stays here. So you're welcome to share any stories, talk about any experiences. Nobody will take it out of this space. And you can always type in your autism-related questions in the chat, but because we're a small group, you just unmute and ask if you have any questions. Okay, so in the first session, we talked about some characteristics of autistic people. We talked about signs that clinicians use to diagnose autism. Here you see a different kind of way of those signs, so the same signs, but in a different way, a more positive way. We talked about strength-based approach in the first session. We also talked about this fact that because we're living in a neurotypical world, for a neurodiverse person, I mean, could be autistic person, could be ADHD, could be anything, basically. Sorry, I don't mean to. The world can be really difficult to live in, this world, because it is set up for us, for neurotypicals. So for autistic people, for other neurodiverse people, it can be really difficult. And we keep telling them what they're not good at, because all our diagnostic criteria is based on negatives, things that people are not good at. So if we keep telling these neurodiverse people what they're not good at, then we are going to basically impact their self-esteem negatively. They won't be able to function well. So we talked about this fact that, imagine yourself not being good at something. Okay, so let's talk about me. I'm not good at sports, all sports. And then if people keep telling me you're not good at it, you have to do it from morning to night. You have to practice, and you're not good at it. You're not getting better. You need to do more. You need to do better. At some point, I feel like I can't do anything. I feel like I'm a loser. So that's why we are trying to stay away from those characteristics, that medical model of talking about disabilities, thinking of so we have two models of disability. A medical model is the model that talks about negatives, talks about things people cannot do, and talks about individuals. So individuals need to change, need to learn. Individuals need to improve, to fit in with other people, or to learn things. Whereas our social model, which is the opposite of it, and we are trying to shift from medical model to that social model, talks about society being disabling rather than the person. So it is the society that needs to change. It is the environment that needs to change rather than expecting the person to change. So this comes from that. You can see plays with toys in ingenious and creative ways. We could see this as something like plays with toys in an unusual way, as we see in autism characteristics, or we can think of that is a creative way of playing with those toys that our typical people don't. Or thriving on routine is okay. No need to apologize. That's another thing. So routine is something that autistic people really thrive on, and they love it. And we talked about creating routines where we can. So this is also talking about this fact that, I mean, there's nothing wrong with thriving on routine. Um, The world can be a loud and overwhelming place for autistic people. Sensory processing differences are not personality defects. So sensory processing is another thing that we see. Sensory processing difference is another thing that we see in autistic people. We talked about it as a characteristic, but when you talk about it from that diagnostic criteria, you think like, okay, this person cannot process sensory information in a way that other people can. Whereas here is like, it is not that person's fault. It is the environment that is different for that person. Or communicates in unexpected ways. Listen, talking is not the only way to speak. This is a very important message that because we are neurotypicals, we love communication and we love to talk. Basically, communication is using words and gestures to talk. It doesn't mean that everybody should love that. So your neurodiverse people, your autistic people might choose not to communicate in a way that we prefer to communicate, like by talking. We need to get past this and see beyond it and see like find a way to communicate with the ones who do not communicate in a way that we want to communicate. Or the need for more downtime does not mean unwillingness or inability to engage with others. So again, it's something that we assume because we neurotypicals, we like to socialize and interact with people. It doesn't mean that everybody should love that. It doesn't mean that everybody should be exactly like that. So if a person chooses to or cannot cope with all the time being in a social setting, that's absolutely fine. And it is their way of their brains working. So it's not something, it's a difference. It's not less or more. And may sometimes need more support to understand dangerous situations with love, guidance, and teaching skills in respectful ways that promotes self-advocacy. Autistic kids are thriving in their own unique ways. So this dangerous situation is caused by us, by neurotypical people, because we've set up the world in a way that we function. So for an autistic person, this might not be easy to function in this world. Therefore, we've got to understand and be more understanding, and also know that because this happens for them, like for autistic people, this happens in this way. So this your autistic people need to live in this world. I mean, I can't find any other way to explain it. In the world that we have set up, we need to teach them those. Okay. Any questions on any of these? And can you see how our lens makes a difference here? So if you look at it from positive perspective, the outcome will be totally different too when you look at it from deficits perspective. Yeah. Okay. So now we moved to autism and mental health. We talked about the fact that because autistic people are living in a neurotypical world and they have experienced put downs for decades or centuries until we realize this is not the way to do things. mental health is a big concept for autistic people, and they have a lot of mental health issues because of that. One of the main mental health issues that is very common for autistic people is anxiety. And this stats here is really significant. 75% of autistic children and 50% of autistic adults experience intense anxiety. Intense anxiety means the anxiety to the level of getting the diagnosis of anxiety disorders. But why is this? I mean, autistic people don't have to experience this, right? So they can, when anxiety is not part of autism diagnosis, right? So autistic people should not be experiencing anxiety, but they do. Why does this happen? Because they're living in our world, because nothing operates in a way that their brain functions. So they struggle to understand many things. They struggle to communicate with us. They struggle to understand what we're telling them. They struggle to follow rules that are out of routine. This means that anxiety happens for them a lot. And this is what anxiety can do to a person. A person who's anxious won't be able to engage in activities, will avoid new situations, won't be able to form relationships or make friends, and will be seen as difficult and will be misunderstood. So you have a person who is like a child or a person who's able to do something like, let's say, they're able to open their bag, take their lunchbox out, and eat their lunch out of that, like go sit and eat it every day. And one day they come, they're very anxious. And remember, these are your autistic children, so they won't communicate with you, their anxiety. So it's usually hard for us to see that they're anxious. They might be anxious inside themselves, but not show it as we would show it to the outside world, because there's that difference in the communication. So this is a child who comes and refuses. So to you, this child is refusing to open his bag and taking his lunch and take his lunchbox out and eat it. So eat from it. So this child is, and you're like, you're being difficult. You've been doing this every single day. Why can't you do it today? Like you're just trying to be difficult. We just need to understand that if that person is a neurodiverse person, neurodiverse child, most probably they're anxious. And I mean, for everybody, really, like if a person is not doing something, we're going to look at this today. We need to think why they can't do it rather than they're trying to be difficult or trying to refuse what we've asked from them. So this is a very important one to think of, that anxiety can lead to being misunderstood and seen as difficult. So when you see a child who's being difficult, think of what's behind that. Why is this person anxious? What can you do to help them to reduce that anxiety? Anxiety can show in many, many ways, especially for children and for adults as well. Like anger can be anxiety. You see a child who throws things at other children, fights with other children constantly. This child is an anxious child. A child who cannot sleep well, a child who is defiant, so like doesn't know how to communicate or doesn't respond to your communication, or channeling, which is a big word, but basically means child who explodes. So you see like that change in their behavior, that they go from like being calm to being super like shouting and showing things around, and yeah, so like they go really quickly. These all can be sign of anxiety for this person. Or some others, lack of focus. You see a child who's not able to focus and learn. They're anxious, avoiding new things, activities, being negative, over planning things, thinking many, many times. So these are all signs of anxiety. And these are not specific for your autistic or neurodivergent children. These are true for all children. So anxiety can show itself in these 8 ways. And sometimes it's hard to see that as anxiety, but we need to remember that. Okay. Now we have a video of an autistic boy who's anxious with his dad. Dad is trying to help reduce that anxiety. Yeah.
There's a buzzy bee.
Can you hear that? Yeah. Oh, sorry, guys.
There's a buzzy bee.
No.
It's not going to hurt you.
Try to relax.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
You're always looking, aren't you? So you're always looking for where the flies are, where the buzzy bees are. And you're tense, aren't you?
Yes, it's tense.
You're not relaxed. Jacko started wearing noise-cancelling headphones 2 years ago, and the change in him is incredible. Jacko's autism can mean ordinary noises are painful and overwhelming. He can cope so much more with everyday noises, but I worry that it cuts him off from the world.
1,
Hold in the middle.
2, 3.
Very good. If you learn to do these jobs really, really well, one day you might be able to have your own house.
Yeah.
Put your own clothes in your washing machine. Have your own washing machine.
A black washing machine.
You want a black one? I know. I'm thinking about his adult life now, but I learned that a few years back, that you've got to plan ahead. You've got to think ahead. There we go.
And we put the washing on.
Yeah.
Big boss. Super duper boss.
When they told me he was autistic, I was terrified. Yeah, I found it difficult to talk about. And then when I did talk about it, when I did open up, people didn't really understand, especially my friends, my male friends. Men are crap in situations like that. I knew pretty early on that Jacko had an incredible amount of joy in him. That's always been there, and that he really loved life, and that all I needed to do was work out what life on his terms was and live it with him. I know that some people look at me and think, you're deluded about your son. I know people have thought that. They're called wind turbines.
Wind turbines.
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 Yeah, you cannot put a limit on any child, especially a child with special needs. You cannot.
I wish we talk about them.
We don't have to talk. We don't have to talk. You can just look at them.
Yeah.
Like I always say, I'm being led by the hand by my child, not the other way around. Like once you get your head around that, you start to think, my child is just wired differently. And that's like an incredible journey that I'm going to go on with him, to work all that out with him.
Okay. Anything you guys noticed on this one?
I liked how he kind of was like listening and like looking out for him, but it also kind of seemed like it was so new to him that he was like almost telling his kid that like, oh, the world's going to be so difficult for you, and like, yeah, it was a bit of both.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Anything else? Anyone else? Yes, you're right. So it's a child who's anxious, and dad who's trying to figure out what to do and how to support this child, but it's not obviously clear cut. He doesn't know how to exactly support him, but he's trying to learn it with the child, to walk with the child, to let the boy guide him, to learn how to support him. And this is exactly what we're trying to do, like supporting our neurodiverse children, because it is really hard to know what's going on in that autistic person's mind, because we're not autistic, so we cannot understand how their brain is working. So, and also every individual is different, like on the autism spectrum, every person is different to another person in terms of their support needs and their abilities. So because of this, every single one, nobody can tell you how to support them unless you form some sort of relationship with them and get to know them really well and to understand where they need support. So in this one, Jacko needed support with anxiety. Dad figured out that what makes him anxious is the noise. So that noise cancelling headphones are helpful tools here. Although that also is thinking, does this limit his experience? Am I limiting his input? So am I limiting his learning? But the thing is that it's a dilemma that's going to be out there. But when you see the outcome is good, the result is good. So the person is calmer, the person is engaging in activities, then you'll know that you're on the right track. So because I mean, a person can be really overwhelmed by people around them and noise and everything, so that they can't engage in activities, and that is something important to keep in mind. Okay. What do we do with anxiety? So the first thing to do is identify the key stressors. What is the cause of that anxiety? And remember, because these are autistic people, you won't always be able to successfully identify this in the first try, but have a guess. And look around and see what could be anxiety provoking for them. Take those away. And then if that didn't work, think of something else. So think what else could be cause of that anxiety. So identify those key stressors. So it's not always possible to take those stressors away. Sometimes you have to be in a situation that stressors are out there. Sometimes, like, being in this world is stressful for them. So think of solutions around that. Think of a quiet, low stimulation spaces available. Sometimes this has to be a quiet place, and other times it doesn't have to be a quiet place. Like, it depends on the person. Could be low stimulation space, or sometimes some people need this place to make as much sound as they want or to be loud. So it could be that place too. So think of what works for this person. Keep your voice quiet and tone calm. So we talked about it, that this is very important. When we are with an anxious person, we catch that anxiety. And when we catch that anxiety, it leads to us, I mean, when we catch our anxiety, we raise our voice, and then they catch our anxiety. So it's like contagious, basically. It keeps getting more and more, and we both become anxious. So be mindful of your own take of that anxiety, and then think, how can you calm down? Sometimes you might need to get away for a few minutes and then come back to the situation. So if that works, that works, or get a cup of tea or something. Teach them self-calming strategies. So a self-calming strategy can be something as simple as breathing, or looking away, or getting a cup of water, tearing up a piece of paper, walking, going outside. Whatever works and whatever you have available, think of those. Think, what would you do in a stressful situation? If you find things like that, think of it and then help them to use those. Build on their strengths. So talking about things, so we talk about this, right? So that talking or mentioning things that the person cannot do can add to their anxiety. So find out their strengths, find out what they are good at, and put those when you're planning for their day. Limit their choices. So instead of saying like, where do you want to sit? You could tell them, do you want to sit here or do you want to sit there? Like, be specific with your options. Or instead of telling them, what do you want to do? Give them 2 options. Do you want to play with this, or do you want to like do drawing? So give limited options. Have break cards available. Teach. A break card can be anything. Something like a pen can be a break card, basically. Something that they give you that indicates they need a break from the activity. But teach things that is going to work for them in future and everywhere that they go. Sensory box. Have a sensory box available for them. So a sensory box is a box that you put sensory toys or sensory items in it, things that they can fidget with, things that they make sounds or have certain smell, or they can touch it, they can push it, pull it, those kind of things. Have those available in that box. So when they're nervous or anxious, take the box to them and let them have a choice of those to choose from, and this can reduce anxiety. You can think of other things with the people that you work that works. So like, I had a guy autistic guy that I was working once, and his way of reducing anxiety was walking outside. So I had to go for long walks with him to help him calm down, which helped me to save it at that time. But you've got to figure out what works for your person. Whatever works, use that one. It doesn't have to be one of these strategies, but just think that this person is anxious. How am I going to help them to feel less anxious? Be creative. Okay. Here is another video of what anxiety can do to an autistic person. You guys hear this? On?
I can hear it now. It just came back on.
Oh, yeah.
We're sorry to announce the train has been delayed. Please This train is diverted.
Sorry.
I'm autistic, and the fear of unexpected changes can make leaving the house impossible.
Did you see what happened there? She hasn't even left the house yet, but all she thinks is those negative experiences that she's had using a train. I mean, I'm sure anybody who's using a train for daily trips, they'll experience a train being diverted, delayed. Not so much those sensory experiences, but those negative experiences, but they don't necessarily remember those every time they leave the house. But when a person is anxious in a negative mindset, all their mind does is think of those negative situations. That is kind of understandable for the brain at that time, for the mind at that time. So I mean, doing something as simple as leaving the house can be really difficult for a person who is that anxious. And sensory experiences are important too. So you need to keep an eye on those and think of how to support them with those negative sensory experiences. Okay. Some more strategies for anxiety. This is a tool, like a anxiety profile, basically, a tool that you can use to communicate about this person between you guys, so that you know what anxiety looks like, sounds like, or acts like for this person. So when they're anxious, what do they do? What do they say? What do they look like? And write those down. Like they say these words, they tap on on the table, or they they keep pacing all the time, or they avoid people and go and sit in a quiet place. So write those down so that you know, you guys know that this means this person is anxious. The other one is you can do one for when they're sad, or when they're upset, or when they're angry. So these things look so this person looks like this when they're angry or sad or upset. So you can do as many of these as you want. And another tool is this one on the top here, is that 5-point scale, the incredible 5-point scale for stressors. If you can see it, it's as you can see, it's color-coded and has numbers on it, and facial expressions and written words. So you can take out any of these features and add them in, depending on your situation. I mean, a person who is triggered by those facial expressions, you can take those out of this and create one without those ones, or colors, same. So this is basically between you and your autistic person. You eventually work with them to understand, okay, so when they are calm, you tell them you're number one, or you're green. So you're in the green space. You can go and do whatever you want. I can see that you're in the green space. And then talk to them, okay, is this making you uncomfortable? Are you in the blue space? So you can do these things. Have some suggestions, write them underneath each of these, so that when they are in these spaces, what are you going to do with them? What strategies are you going to use? What suggestions are you going to give them? So things like, okay, so when this person is in a blue space, you can you can leave this activity and come back later, maybe. And then when you're in the yellow space, maybe you can go to your quiet space, or maybe you can get a cup of water when you are in the orange space. We can get something from your toolbox. When you are in the red space, it means you're really, really nervous. So I'm going to leave you to it for a while with your like sensory tools in a quiet or low stimulation space. So think of solutions that you have for each of these and write them down and share it with anyone who's working with that person. And the other strategy is the grounding exercise, which is like looking around and basically trying to stay in here and now. A sensory toolbox can do this too. Like a person who goes through sensory items can help them to stay in here. Other things that you can do is this one, like name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, and all. But this is not not going to be exactly the same for all your autistic people. So it's not something that you have to exactly do like this. So like with the guy that I was talking to you about, with him, we used to go for walks and then listen to our footsteps. He lived in a countryside, so there was lots of leaves, so he could walk on those and listen his footsteps. And then we would count those. So he was a very cognitively capable guy. So he was able to talk and communicate in any other time, but not when he was anxious. So he was not able to follow any of these when he was anxious. When he was anxious, all I could do with him was walk with him and then try and listen to the sounds around us. So will depend on your person and think what they can do. Teach some breathing techniques. So breathing is a difficult concept for an autistic person. You need to find out because it's very like abstract. Like you tell them breathe, take deep breaths. How do they do that? So you need to teach them what it looks like. This is one way. Smell the flower, pull out the candle, or smell the flower, blow out the candle. Like you give them an indication of how long they need to inhale and exhale. Other way is by like blowing into a plastic bag or putting their hands on their belly and then feeling it. For example, when they're like breathing. So find a concrete way to teach them how to breathe. You can find these if you look up like some grounding exercises. There are some cool techniques for breathing that you can choose whatever works for your person. But breathing is very important because when we are nervous, we breathe fast and the oxygen doesn't get enough. So our brain doesn't get enough oxygen to stay calm. So if we manage our breathing, this can change everything basically. But the most important thing is that you cannot start these things when the person is anxious. You cannot start by telling them like, stop breathing when they're anxious, because this needs learning. They need to learn how to do this properly. So when they're calm, make games out of these and play with them. And then when they are anxious, they learn to do it. Another thing to do when a person is anxious is the spaghetti body. You guys can try and do it too. So to do it, you need to stand up and make your body as stiff as possible. So like make it stiff, like a uncooked noodle or spaghetti. And then once you do that, like push your hands down, push your head up, push your chin up. And then this is uncooked spaghetti. Now, after you've done that, become a cooked spaghetti. So how do you do that? Like you let go of that stiffness. Okay? Yeah. So this is a cool exercise to help your body to release the anxiety. You can do it with the people that you're working with, you can do it for yourself when you are tired or anxious, or you want to relax, basically. Okay. Right. Before going into sensory, any questions on anxiety? Or anything you have experienced? No? Awesome. Okay, let's get into sensory. So we talked about this fact in the beginning of our workshop, that sensory sensitivities or sensory processing differences is part of autism diagnosis. So people experience sensory in a different way. So our central nervous system, our brain basically, and our spinal cord is responsible for our sensory experiences. We do not experience senses through our senses. So like we see things with our eyes, but our eyes are not the parts that decide what these things are or how to react to them. Our brain is. So this information goes to our brain, and then our brain processes that and decides what to do with that. So like we see a bright light, it goes to our brain. Our brain is like, you need to blink. It's a bright light. And then our eyes blink. So it's not our sensory parts or organs, it is our brain that decides what to do with that sensory information. And then brain prioritizes it in a different way. So let's say we are talking here and there's like a loud music, or there's a music in the background and there's lots of sounds. We can stay focused and then keep talking and block out all those sounds, because this is what's important for our brain, although those sounds might be louder than this conversation that we're having here. And then suddenly there's a bang sound, a very loud sound. Your brain will switch attention to that sound because it is something that your brain tells you, I need to notice that. What was that? Is it something dangerous? And then as soon as it figures out it's not dangerous, it blocks it out. So you still can get back to focusing and doing things with us. And then, sorry for that. And then, your autistic people receive information in a different way and then respond to it in a different way. So for them, the priority that the brain receives might not be, okay, so let's say we are having that conversation and then there are some other sounds around us. So for an autistic person, the priority might not be for the brain, right? Not the person. Might not be this conversation, might be those sounds around us. So the person won't be able to focus on this conversation, will be distracted by those sounds because that person's brain is not able to block out the extra information and stay focused. So this is called sensory processing difficulties or sensory sensitivity, when the person's brain experiences the sensory input in a different way to the way our brain experiences it. Let's see how it works. So these are our 7 senses. I was going to say 5, but they're 7. So the 5, I went fast. So the 5 senses, I'm sure you guys are familiar with it, are hearing, seeing, smell, taste, and then touch and feel. So these are our usual senses that we can be hyposensitive to them or hypersensitive to them. Hyposensitive means we are low sensitive, so we need more of that sense. So when I am hyposensitive to light, I need more light, I might stare at light. or sunlight because I need more of that sense. Opposite of that is when I'm hypersensitive to it, which means I'll block my eyes, I'll cover my eyes, I shield my eyes when there's lights because I can't take it. So this is hypersensitivity, and that is hypersensitivity, or low sensitivity, and then hypersensitivity is like highly sensitive to something. And then there are two more senses here. Are you guys familiar with them, or can you guess what they are? Vestibular and proprioception. So what could vestibular be?
That might be like sensing movement because they're on a swing.
Yeah, like movement, yeah, or balance, basically.
Yeah.
So it's the sense of balance, yes. So it's the sense that helps us to sit up, walk, run, swing, spin, and not fall down, because it tells us how to balance our weight in different positions. How about proprioception? What is proprioception?
I was gonna guess like muscle pain or like what your muscles feel like.
Yeah, it's kind of like it is your body's GPS system, basically. It's the sense that tells you where your body and your body parts are in this space. So you're right. We receive the information through our muscles and our joints about where we are in this space. If you want to see how this works, close your eyes and put your hands like so. Put your hands like this first. And then when your eyes are closed, try to touch your fingertips. And once you touch them, keep them there, and then open your eyes. So move your hands and then touch. Yeah, and then open your eyes. Were you able to find your fingertips? Yeah. Yeah, sort of. Yes, it depends. It depends how awake we are, like how tired we are, or like how, and also how we are with it. Like some people are better at things, some people are not. But if you were like, how did you find your fingertips with your eyes closed? How do you know where they are?
I don't know, it just must
Oh,
be that
yeah.
proprioception.
Yes, exactly. It's the sense that you sense it, even though you don't see them, but you sense roughly where they are. So we are different at this. We're not all the same. Yeah, right? Did you find it, Gavi?
Yeah,
Oh, I
I can feel that. Yeah, I can think so.
Yeah. Yes,
It's not
some
great
are
here.
better, some are worse. If you are one of those people like me that have bruises all over your body all the time, you don't have great reception because you bang into furniture. So yes, we're different with this, but we are in the like kind of like middle range, all of us. So we can sort of find them, and we can balance. We might be better at it, we might be worse at it in any of these senses, but we're in the middle range, neurotypicals. Whereas if you're a neurodiverse person, you might be way different in any of these senses. So this is a video that is going to give you a glimpse into sensory overload, sensory experiences of one autistic person. Remember, it's like all autistic people will be different in this one. So it won't be exactly the same for everybody, but this is one of them. did we see in this video? Lots of sensory overload, right? Like too much, too noisy, and colors and everything. And remember, this is everyday life. So it's not like unusual stuff. It's a cafe, everyday street, everyday people. So everyday life can be that painful for somebody with sensory sensitivities. And this is something that we need to think of. So it's not about like them, I don't know, being in a, so if you're in a noisy space, I mean, if this was the case and played like all day long for you, you would not be feeling good after hearing it for the whole day, right? So an autistic person, a neurodiverse person, a person with sensory sensitivity is experiencing that all the time. Now, okay, so we have another sense, which is called interoception. Can you guys guess what this sense is from the things around it?
Yeah, like internal stuff.
Yeah, it is our internal sense. It is the sense that tells us when we're hungry, when we're thirsty, when we're sleepy, when we're anxious, when we're scared, when we are itchy, or when we have a pain, or when we are breathless. So all of those things are our interoception telling us. Now think of somebody who doesn't have good interoception and you want to toilet train them. Will you be able to toilet train them? It can be really, really hard. I mean, you'll be able to, but it can be really, really hard. You need to find some external cues for them to rely on because they can't tell when they need to go to the toilet. Okay, now this is stimming. So before moving to stimming, I talk a bit more about this interoception. These senses that we have our internal feelings. So like we understand what's happening inside our body. It's different from a person to another one, and it's not the same all the time. So when you have when you're like and it's different from time to time, and it's different from a person to another person, right? So when you have an autistic person who doesn't have good interoceptive skills, and they don't understand that they're hungry or they're thirsty or they're angry or they're like anxious, but they do know that there's something not right about them. So they feel uncomfortable. They just cannot tell what this feeling is, right? So it's about being hungry or thirsty. So a lot of the time that's the case. So when you have an autistic person who always look at their physicals, look at if they're hot, if they are thirsty, offer them water, if they are cold, offer them a jumper or something. So look at their needs, and that will help with lots of behaviors. Emma Goodall is an autistic researcher in Australia. She was the one who first talked about this interoception. So she talked about it, that people, I mean, in her classroom, she had some children, autistic children. So she taught them about their urine color, so that if your urine color is dark when you go to the toilet, it means that you haven't had enough water. So then she offered them water, and then she saw a big reduction in their behavioral challenges. in the long term. So this is something to keep in mind. If you see some behavioral challenges, always think of sensory, because sensory is a big thing in there. And interoception is one of the really big ones. Like another guy that when I was working in a residential place, we had a guy who was autistic. Well, more like fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, but also autistic. And then he would go to residential places and he loved clothes. So people would give him clothes that they didn't need and he would put them on. So he would come back to that residential place with those many layers on. And then he would be overwhelmed in the end. Eventually, we figured that this is because he puts too many layers on. He would not agree to take those off because those were his new clothes. And then he would be feeling too hot, and then he would be overwhelmed. So this is something important to keep in mind when you're working with autistic people. Okay. I think we stop here and have our 15-minute break and then be back here with the rest of our training today. Unless there's a question before we go. Okay, so if there isn't,
I
yeah,
do have because you're talking about they can't tell if they're hungry. So how do you know whether to give them food or like give them water?
Yes. So you just know and guess like throughout the day what they've been doing, because we have a facilitator who's autistic and she's aware that she can't tell when she's had enough food or when she's hungry. So she portions out her food that she needs to take during the day, and then she takes on certain times, and this is the portion that she takes. So she knows that because she's living by herself and she's managing it herself. So I mean, even a very capable ones sometimes cannot tell that they're hungry and they forget, but this impacts them. So you just need to monitor them basically, or have this information, create a table and put that information in there and get it from people who hand them over to you. Have they eaten? Have they had a drink? Like, have they used the toilet? All those things. Have they slept? Yeah.
That's helpful.
Awesome. Okay, so I'll see you back at 11:45. Yeah, great. Okay, so we move to stimming. Do you guys know what stimming is? Have you seen? Yeah, those repetitive movements or repetitive sounds or repetitive movement of objects or noise or anything repetitive is called stimming. Do we stim as neurotypicals? Yes, we do. How do we stim? Clicking a pen, moving our legs.
Well, we can't show you.
Yep. Having on the table, yeah. Anything else? I mean, if you guys play something like piano, that's stimming.
Snail biting?
Yeah, nail biting, pulling your hair or something like that. Yeah, it's all stimming. So we stim. Why do we stim? It feels
Feels good.
yes, feels good.
Just
So
to
we
look at it
enjoy.
and think about it, yeah.
Yeah, do it without thinking. Sometimes helps us focus. Sometimes helps us be less nervous. When we're nervous, we do more like stimming, like nail biting. So we stim, and there's a purpose for stimming. So when there's a purpose, should we stop from stimming?
No.
No, right? There's no need for that. Unless we're bothered with that, I mean, ourselves are bothered by doing that, then we will work on stopping it, right? Or it is some sort of like harmful to our body or ourselves or other people. It's the same story with your neurodiverse children. So when they stim, I mean, they stim in sometimes in different ways, more visible ways or more noticeable ways than we stim. But it follows it has a purpose. So there's a reason for that stimming. The person might be enjoying it, or they need it to focus, or for sensory stimulation, or they need to block out other senses, or they're anxious or stressed. So there's a purpose for that. So when there's a purpose for that, we don't stop them from stimming. Unless the same thing with them. It is harmful to them or to other people, or the person is bothered by doing it. So like doesn't want to do it, but has to do it, then we help them stop it. So stopping it or helping them to stop it is by basically understanding what gives the person, like what person gets out of doing it, and then giving that with something else to them. So if it is a source of distraction, using another thing to distract them, or if it is a source of like joy or enjoyment, then using another thing for that. So replacing it by something else that they do and they enjoy. But it's really, really hard to change stimming because that movement, that specific movement, is usually what's important for the person or what's the source of joy for the person. So when it is like this, then we don't think of basically other things. Okay, so we don't think of replacing it or changing it. Okay, here's Jason, who is autistic. He is a young autistic man. He refuses to take showers. He has some sort of skin condition that gets infected easily. So he has to really look after his hygiene, his personal hygiene. However, he refuses to take showers. He refuses to wear underwear. He refuses to change his clothes. What do we do with him?
Like maybe ask him why he
Yeah.
doesn't want to.
Yeah. If he can tell us why, then ask him why. So can you guess, if he can't tell us why, which is usually typically the case for autistic people, can you guess why this is happening?
I think like change, like changing clothes is like a change.
Yeah, it is like a change.
The routine.
Sorry, I didn't catch that. So if it is, okay, so it's change, but if it is, it could, I mean, what else could it be other than change? Think of sensory.
Like maybe comfortable, like yeah, just being in the
Which
same body is
sense?
comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah, but which sense is involved in all of these? Showering.
It isn't like this texture and everything. The
Yeah.
texture.
Yeah, the feeling, right? The
Yes,
touch,
yeah, feels, yeah.
right? So it could be that sense which is involved in all of these. So this person or Jason is highly sensitive or hypersensitive to the sense. So what do we do with the showers? But basically, because that's our main problem, I guess. Like showers?
Like find another way to do it. Maybe a bath is like
Yeah,
easier, or like a sponge, like if he's
yeah.
able to do it. Mhm.
Yes, find another way because it is it's not working for him. Like showers is too much for him. who can't take it sensory-wise. I mean, it could be other senses too, like the noise of the shower and then the smells in there. So think of other ways that he agrees to do it. So lots of challenges that we have, behavioral challenges that we see as behaviors, are related to sensory. And then when you dig deeper, this is just an example with not much information. I didn't give you heaps of information. This was a very short one, and you don't know Jason's, but this is just an example, a case example that will help you see that this can be the case for many autistic people, that they have sensory sensitivities and they do things because of that. Okay. Creating a sensory profile is another great tool to work with people who have sensory processing differences. A sensory profile is something that you guys can create for yourselves. It is, I mean, we do have a blank of this to send you guys if you want to. We can do that, but you just do it for each individual person that you're working with, and you feel like they have some sort of sensory sensitivities. Write it down. With touch, are they undersensitive or oversensitive? With sound, undersensitive, like with any of these, undersensitive means the person needs more of that sense. Like with sound, they turn up music all the time, or they bang on things all the time. Or are they oversensitive, which is they're covering their ears? So here are some examples that you guys can look at them and then see what it means to be undersensitive or oversensitive on that sense. And then you can decide about your person. This profile, if you create it, will help you to choose that sensory basket for them or the sensory box for them. Choose things that are suitable for that person's need. Any questions on this one? These are some sensory tools that you guys can put in your sensory box that you're using. Like, these are just some examples, and these are some places to go to. Just some examples again. You can go to Kmart or those dollar stores too, if you want cheaper versions. But if you want something that lasts, then you better go to one of these places or places similar to that. So that one on top is a jewelry that's for kids who chew on things. I constantly chew on things. This is a really cool tool that they can chew on it. And it doesn't look weird. It looks like a necklace that they can wear. And it doesn't come off, like they can't really bite off it. And noise canceling things, or these body like sacks, or things to put you in a tight space, a vest or a blanket. You can look those up. You can look up these for shops and some more, and look those up and see them. And then based on that profile that you create, you can choose what you need for that person. You just need to remember that small changes to the environment can make a huge difference to the person's well-being, happiness, and behaviors. So if you see behavioral challenges, if you want to look after the person's well-being, look at their environment, see what they're sensitive to and their sensory sensitivities, and then look at those. Be aware of the environment, look around to see if it is creating any difficulties for autistic people. So if it is something that they find hard, change it. just remember that you make a small change in the environment, it makes a big, it has a big impact on them. So it's easy to do. It is the easiest thing to do. Sensory things are the easiest things to look and to change when it comes to changing behavior. Okay. So for communication, so next big thing with autistic people is communication. And communication is challenging with autistic people. Sometimes it's the words that is challenging, so they don't understand the words and stuff. But sometimes we are not as clear. Most of the times we're not as clear for an autistic person. So I'm going to do one activity with you guys. Can you guys grab a piece of paper, not very small, like a piece of paper, maybe like this size paper, and then yeah, and then follow my instructions if you have that piece of paper. You can choose to stay out of this too if you don't want to do it, but I have if more than one person does it. Right. So can you fold your piece of paper in half and then cut? You don't need to show it. You can do it for yourself. And then cut the right up corner of your piece of paper, the right up corner. And then fold it in half again. And this time, cut the right bottom corner of it. And then this time, fold it in half again, and then cut the up left corner of it. And then for the last time, I hope your paper was big enough, fold it in half again, and then cut the left bottom corner of it. And then once it's done, it's very small for you, Stan, isn't it? You need scissors. Okay. And then once it's done, you can show it to each other. Like unfold it and show it. Cool. Can you show yours, Stan? Yeah, nice. Great. Do they look the same? No, they look totally different because I was not clear on the instructions that I gave you. Was I? I told you to cut, like, I didn't tell you how to fold it. I didn't tell you where to cut it, how to cut it. So you had to fill in the gaps yourself. And this is usually what happens when we are communicating with autistic people. They have to fill in the gaps themselves. And because an autistic brain doesn't work in a typical way, the way that they fill in the gaps is different to how we would fill in, right? And that is lots of the challenges that we have. So our autistic people might have challenges with the spoken language, like understanding the words, some of them might not. Some of them might have challenges with retelling an incident or event or something that has happened to them. Echolalia is something that some autistic people can have. Echolalia is echoing the last thing that they've heard. Like if you ask them, do you want chips or burgers, they would say burgers, even though they want chips. So it's like they say the last thing that they've heard. They will have difficulty with keeping eye contact at the same time and then talking with you. Joint attention is hard, so we talked about this one, but I'll just briefly mention it. Joint attention is paying attention to the same thing that the other person is paying attention to. So when you're talking about a subject, you can form a conversation with somebody because you both can think of that thing. Like right now we talk about autism, so we can form conversation with each other. Whereas if you thought of something else and I talked about something else, like I talked about autism and you thought of like, I don't know, your book, then we cannot form conversation with each other. They might have sophisticated vocabulary of special interest. This is an interesting one. So they know something and they love something and they know everything about it and they use those big words. And this might be misleading, that you might think, okay, they know everything about this, but they actually don't. Processing speed is another thing that they need. And following the rules of games. I mean, processing speed can be difficult, but it can be slower for them. So like when you tell them, do you wanna go outside? So you wait for the answer, and because you assume their processing speed is the same as you might like rephrase it soon, like you say, do you want to go outside? And they don't respond. And then you say, do you want to, oh, I was talking to you. I asked, do you want to go outside? And then this person is trying to process that. So this person is trying to like, do you want to? And then you change it again. I was talking to you. And then this person is back to process like, I was talking to you. What does that mean? So, and then we rephrase it again, like, did you not hear me? I asked you, do you want to go outside? So be patient, give them time, give them enough time to process the information that you've shared. This is the impact of communication difficulties. So a person who doesn't communicate well, they won't be able to form relationships. They will be seen as rude because they can't tell you why they're not doing something. It will be hard to support them when you don't know what they're thinking or what they want or what they need. They can be misunderstood. There'll be frustration. They'll be frustrated. And problem behaviors will be used to communicate. So non-speaking does not, this is very important to know. Non-speaking does not mean that I have nothing to say. It means you will need to listen to me with more than just your ears. You'll need to look at behaviors. You'll need to look at their responses to understand what they're trying to tell you. Here is a video to show us how an autistic person, how it can be confusing for life can be confusing for an autistic person. This is about Carly, who is non-speaking, and she has a twin sister. And this is her twin sister with their dad in a cafe, and Carly's experiences narrated by her sister Anders.
I can't wait for a coffee. Oh, hello, barista.
What do you girls want?
Skim soy latte?
Taryn, soy can't be skim.
Hot chocolate? Orange juice?
No, Dad, I want a coffee. Hot chocolate? Great.
So I was thinking of going to Sarah's later. Could you give me a ride?
Yeah, sure. Are you cool with taking your sister?
Yeah.
Wait, what? I have my own plan.
Carly.
Okay, I'll see you tonight, okay?
Focus.
Did you see what happened there? Why was Carly upset?
Just didn't they didn't know what she wanted. Got the wrong things, and she couldn't like they didn't understand what she was thinking or wanting.
Yeah, she was not able to communicate there. I mean, they were not able to communicate with her because she wanted coffee, and Dad assumed that she shouldn't have coffee, although her twin sister was allowed to have coffee. And this is some of our assumptions about like autistic people. And then he didn't give her, like he really tried to give her choices, like 2 options, used his hands, used strategies, but the option was not there. And then they didn't even ask her if she wanted to go with her sister or not in the evening. So this is what we usually do with our autistic people. We make assumptions. We don't include them, especially if they are not speaking. This Carly is autistic. She's Canadian and she's written a book with her dad. She has a really high IQ, like above 130. She's very intelligent, but she's non-speaking. So to the certain age, everybody thought she had, like to like age 11 or something, she had severe intellectual disability as well as autism. So that was her diagnosis. And then at age 11, 12, for the first time in her life, she typed help, teeth hurt. And this was the person who never learned the letters. I mean, everybody thought she had severe intellectual disability, right? And she could not speak at all. So she was just moving in the house and not sitting still at all. So she did lots of therapy, like ABA therapy, but she never actually responded to those. So never anyone thought she was learning anything out of those. And then she has written a book with her dad. So she sends emails to her dad or types. And then her dad completes them and turned into a book. So I suggest if you have time, read her book. It's a very interesting one and gives lots of insight on how a non-speaking autistic person have things to say that we assume they don't. There's a question for you guys to think of. What communication difficulties can you see in the people that you work with or you support, you teach? Yeah, think about them. You can share if you like to, or you don't have to share.
Oh, yeah, I can share.
Yeah.
I struggle. I don't always get answers when I ask questions.
Yeah. Yes, that's that could be related to many things. Could be related to the processing speed, but also could be related to the person understanding your question, or could be related to you need to give them some options to answer. But yes, that is a very valid challenge working with autistic people. Let's skip this one. What can you do to assist communication?
I think giving options helps a lot. And then yeah, waiting, like wait for like
Yeah.
10, 15
Yeah.
seconds. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let them to calm down first and give it the options.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, so going forward from there.
Yeah.
If it is not, just let him to do what he wants and as like observe how the brain works at that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Help them to use pictures, because pictures don't fade away. So as much as you can, use pictures or even written words, or like use your phone. look up a picture of things that you're talking about to give them some sort of like assistance, help to understand you better.
I have a boy who likes monkey apple and he knows to spell boo boo. That's the three words that he can. So always like when we, even it is like when we say monkey, he was like boosting up himself. Oh yeah, monkey. We are going to see monkey, something like that. So
Yeah.
yeah. So monkey, apple, boo boo. That's the three words that he can pronounce. He can recognize the letters, only that three words, and he can type as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, yes, limited words is common for autistic people. So sometimes they only say certain words. First thing is learn those words and what they mean for that person, because sometimes
Yeah.
those words mean a lot bigger things than what they actually are.
Yeah.
This is a visual schedule for an autistic person that you can use. One of the things that you can use images and pictures is this. So you give them an idea of what they're expected to do or what they are going to do. And it's very important for them. So you use pictures. Creating routine is really good. So if you create a routine and have these pictures on a routine basis, like every Monday we do these things, take pictures and put them there. And then when one of them changes, when you take out a picture, remember to put something in its place because it's important not to leave gaps in their knowledge. This will support your communication. So using pictures in all ways, this is one of those ways that you can do. And these are some other visual supports, like a break card or a visual timer to give them an indication of how long this is going to take or how long you need for them to wait, those kind of things. Like this bubble timer is really cool one because they enjoy watching it too, so it's calming as well. And then social stories, another great tool that if you guys want to learn more about social stories, if you don't create them, because it's not something that I can teach like in a few minutes, but definitely you can come to us if you are using them and you think you need it. We can help you with learning how to create them. But these are stories that you create for a specific situation that you have the person to know what they're supposed to do. Like it's not it's not a behavior management tool, it's like a teaching tool, so fills in the gaps on their knowledge so they know what's expected from them in this specific situation. This is a communication profile. That same thing with sensory profile. You can use a communication profile and things that you know about this person, put it in there. Like this child won't answer one question, like will take like 3 minutes for him to answer one question. Put it there. Or this child only says monkey and these three words. Put it in this communication profile. This child, when they're asked to go outside, well, I don't know, you take their hat and show them, and then they'll understand this means that they're going outside. So put all the knowledge that you have about the person, this communication profile will help you to understand, or like this person, when they're anxious, they start banging on the table. This is another way that this person is communicating with you. Put it in there so that everybody who's working with this person will know what it means, what those behaviors, actions mean, basically. So people who are non-speaking are not non-communicative, and that's important to know, like that Carly, and not assume that people who are non-speaking, they have intellectual problems or they don't know what they want. Communication may present itself in many different ways, like in that Carly's cafe. Carly reaching out to that coffee and putting her drink aside was a way that she was trying to communicate, I wanted coffee and you didn't give it to me. Many attempts to communicate may be seen as behavioral problems, like that Carly's reaching out to the coffee and then tipping over her chocolate and everything on the table would seem as a behavioral problem if they didn't know what Carly was thinking. It isn't always easy to see what people are trying to communicate with autistic people, because communication is a big challenge for autism. And when students can communicate their needs, there are less misunderstandings and challenging behavior. Okay. Now time for questions and answers. Any things you guys want to talk about? Or maybe reflect a bit before questions. Okay, so after this workshop, what are you guys going to start doing, stop doing, or do more of? Is there something that you guys will start doing and you didn't do before? Is there something that you used to do and you think like, I should not be doing it? Is there something that you will be doing more of? And you used to do and you learn that it is helpful and will keep doing it?
I think what I've learned to start doing is like not ask what do you want to do, like come up with plans and then give options.
Yeah.
But yes, I'll do more of that.
Yeah.
For me, I would like to introduce the flashcards, like the picture cards, more than asking him to do this. So I'm presenting a picture card like that with the pictures and giving some options. Then he can choose and then see what he's doing, and then yeah. So to stop doing like I just want to observe more. Stop following him and just observing him more
Yeah.
before I act. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, similar. I'm really wanting to get some like emotion cards or like chicken cards
Yeah.
for debriefs and stuff. I
Yeah.
just need to find a laminator.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you can do a lot with the visuals. And the fact that visuals help is a great thing to know. And well, you can be creative as you want. And you can do a lot with visuals, with like visuals around in the environment so that they know where things are, what things are. Use visuals for emotions, use visuals for communicating with them. Sometimes you just need your phone and a picture of like Google on your phone basically, and Google that and show it to them if you don't have it accessible for you at that time. So just use it. Just use it as much as you can and think of it as like,
Being great.
I don't know, glasses or hearing aids that we wear and we use. And it is something that helps us to understand more and to function better. So this is something that helps them. So use it as much as you can. Yeah, you're right. Visuals are a big thing. Helps with communication. So with all this that has been shared, do you think you understand behaviors of autistic people better? Maybe. I mean, obviously, two-hour workshops won't be enough to understand everything about behaviors of autistic people. But one main thing that we have learned and was the point of these workshops is to understand that all behavior has a reason. So there's a reason for behaviors. If there's a behavior challenge, then there's a reason for that. So we need to think of what's the reason, and if you take away that reason, that will help reduce that behavior. Any